Can you tell me how this came to you, how you sort of found David Hemingson's script?
There was no David Hemingson script. It was, I got the idea for the movie from a fairly obscure 1935 French film called Merluce by director Marcel Pagnol, who has other, masterpieces. That's maybe one of his more forgotten films, but I saw it at a film festival a dozen years ago, and thought, that's a good premise for a movie. And I just kind of held on to it and didn't do anything with it. And then I hadn't gone to a, to a private school, or I did go to a private school in Omaha. I didn't go to a boarding school in Massachusetts. And I got a pilot set in a boarding school in Massachusetts 4 years ago, and it was very well written. And I called up the writer and said, I love your script, I don't want to make it, but would you consider writing a story, a feature in that very same world? And he accepted. That's how it happened.
So, and then did you sort of let him go, and then he came back to you with the film, or did you sort of collaborate with him through that process?
It was my first experience directing a writer.
Yeah.
So he came up with 2, 3, 4 different premises. And I said, no. Oh, yeah, that one. That's a good one. And then so we collaborated in that way where he was the writer, but kind of, using me as a sounding board.
I'd love to know about at what point you thought about bringing Paul on and sort of reuniting with Paul for the first time since Sideways.
Paul Giamatti she's talking about. I had been dying to work with that cat again all these years, and hadn't found the right project, nor am I fast with screenplays. Yeah. So it's not like, the next one next year. And all my stuff takes a long time. But this was very much written with him in mind. Yeah. Very much written with him in mind. And I think I told him about it, and then, maybe even sent him an early draft just to sort of check in with him. Yeah. Because he's smart and good with material and would have had good instincts about it, like if we're on the right path, both for him specifically and as a movie in general. And he was in, and so, yeah. I mean, the character's named Paul.
Yes. I want to talk about the 70s milieu that you're sort of operating in, sort of from the first moment you're giving us the retro titles, and you're really sort of both in the time period, you're sticking us in this aesthetic, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, how you wanted to sort of envelop the audience in this.
You mean make a 70s movie?
Yeah.
Well, I've been, in a way, trying to continue to make 70s movies my whole career.
Well, yeah.
By that I mean character-oriented, whatever you want to say, character-driven, human stories, human comedies. I was a teenager in the 70s. I graduated from high school in 79. Those are the movies that most, even though I've watched movies from everywhere and from every period, those are the movies that really, resonated with me and that taught me what an American commercial narrative film is. Now, with all the crap they're making, those are considered art films, right? Oh, the 70s, those art films. Well, fuck that, man. Those are like good movies, human movies, where the protagonists and the situations are measured, and the value of them is measured by their proximity to real life, not their distance from real life. And the quality of actors utilized and lionized them. So I've been continuing to try to make those movies. Yeah. And then with this one, the fact that Hemingson and I decided to set it in 1970, it's just sort of a directorial parlor trick, I just went, well, what if we pretend it's actually made then? Yeah. And there are precedents for that, Paper Moon. Yeah. Is made in whatever it was, 72, 73, but he as I am with the 70s, he was with the, Bogdanovich was with the 30s, wanted it to feel like a movie made in the 30s and achieve. And then this is more kind of in the art film. Lesser known, you guys may not know this film. There was an English film called Bait, B-A-I-T, about 4 years ago. Some maniac English guy made a film that really looks like an English film made in about 1964. I mean, really looks and sounds like it. So I'm not the first to try to attempt this. Yeah. But, you know, I'm glad I'm not alone. Yeah. And so it's not like dogmatically a 70s movie, but, you know, call it 65% of the way there.
I'd love to talk to you about finding Dominic Sessa, who plays Angus, who is a true discovery. This is his first feature film. This is his first professional role ever.
He'd never been in front of a camera, not even a student film.
Wow.
He's really plucked from obscurity.
What was that process like, sort of knowing that this character would be so central?
I made another high school movie 23 years ago, Election. And in Election, the same process when you're trying to get kids, teenagers, to be in a movie. You want them to be able to be good in a movie, but you can't hire any movie stars, any like kid stars because they just seem too much like actors. They're too slick. Yeah. This doesn't work. It's not for me. And you can't hire older kids to play younger kids because that's cheating and you can see right through it. So it's just time consuming to find like kids who have talent and maybe some training, but not too much training and all that. So it's just a time game. So I used a New York-based casting director named Susan Shopmaker. And bless her heart, she and her staff went through 800 submissions from around the English speaking. Because nowadays with, it was happening anyway, but now with COVID, with no more in-person auditions, is people just put themselves on tape wherever the hell they are and they, press send and there you are. But still, you look at all of them. And we didn't like any of them. Well, found some other parts for the movie, but didn't find the lead, at least not to my satisfaction. And then finally, we activated a plan that we were going to do anyway, even out of politeness, which was call up the schools where we're actually going to shoot and say, whom do you have there? And there he was at Deerfield Academy. He's a senior. The star in the drama club, the drama department, but he'd never been in front of a camera. Honest, wanted to be an actor, was applying to Carnegie Mellon, he got into Carnegie Mellon. And that's he. Wow. And it was just last thing, it was interesting for me to observe that some people, Ray Abbas, that he has a talent for it. Yeah. Born to do it. Yeah. And not just acting, but film acting.
Yeah, I was going to say, was there any sort of growing pains in that situation?
Paul and I were there to help him along, just to give him little tips, but the fucking kid is born to do it. He just had it. Yeah. And I learned early on that the best actors are also the best technically. They know their dialogue forward and backward, they can hit their marks, they can loop well. And he's just got it. I've never, and I've been involved with some really now famous actors earlier in their career, like Reese Witherspoon and Shailene Woodley and Chris Klein for a while. But this one is really, the difference is they all had some experience. Well, not Chris Klein, but this kid was really plucked from nowhere, but he's got it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to round out sort of the trio at the central of the film, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Divine Joy Randolph, who gives such an amazing performance, and deciding on her for Mary.
I had seen her in Dolomite Is My Name. Anybody seen Dolomite Is My Name? It's such a good movie. It's so funny, and I think it's underappreciated. It's really a good movie. And I thought she kind of, I mean, Eddie Murphy is fantastic in that movie, but she kind of steals it too. So I just made sure she was one of the ones whom I was able to meet and audition. She was kind enough to read for it as well. I rely a lot on auditions. And there she was. And the thing is, too, is, at least in my experience, for dramatic parts, I like to have actors who have comic chops and comic experience, so they can embody and express the emotion without drear, without a lot of hoo crap, and still be funny when you need to be funny, and she has that.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could talk about the process of filming. You filmed over in multiple different schools, and what was that like, locating the schools and also sort of just capturing this boarding school, claustrophobia?
Well, just in terms of location scouting and production design, it's pretty common that when you have I had the experience with my film Nebraska 10 years ago. If any of you have seen it, there's a fictitious Nebraska town, Hawthorne, Nebraska. It's cobbled together from about 6 different small towns. This one has a good library, and this one has a good, Main Street, and this one has a good office, and this one has, same thing here. So this one was shot at Groton, Deerfield, Northfield, Mount Herman, St. Mark's, and a private public school called Fairhaven. And what was the other part of the question?
Just capturing the sort of, in terms of production design and also sort of the experience of shooting, capturing the sort of feeling of boarding school that you wanted to convey.
I don't know, we just did it. Well, those places tell you what the feeling is and how they want to be shot. And then you just make it up. However, for example, like the dorm, the beginning of the movie, Angus's dorm room, that's at an abandoned convent in Boston, for example, on an upper floor where the nuns lived. It wasn't, but it was because all the dorms have been renovated at the schools. So we wanted to get one also. We found a old convent.
I was wondering if you could talk about the music, both the soundtrack and Mark Gordon's score, and how you brought that all together.
Thank you for asking, because we, and by we I mean the music editor, and I are very proud of the music in the film, because it took a long time to assemble and find what we could afford. It's just a lot of trial and error, and then after you have what works perfectly for the film and you can't clear something or you can't afford something, then what's a decent alternative? The most expensive one was Cat Stevens. The Wind, $300,000 for 40 seconds. Originally they wanted $400,000, and I wrote them a letter. Cat Stevens' father was Cypriot, and I happen to be Greek American, so I played the I'm a Greek, you're kind of a Greek. Can't you give a fellow Greek a break? For you, 25% off. So it came down $100,000. So it's like that. And then other things, like there are the Chambers brothers in the first reel when the kids are at the time during the credit sequence. And there were supposed to be credits over the scene when Angus is packing his bag and everything, but if we had credits over those scenes, then the Chambers Brothers music would have been $30,000 more. Like, all right, we don't have to have credits over that. We'll wait for Mary in the kitchen. It's a lot of practical stuff like that.
I want to go back to, these actors that you're
Wait, one more thing though. Yeah. Mark, you asked about Mark Morton.
Yeah.
He previously had scored my film Nebraska and done a bang-up job, I felt, and I just thought he'd be right for this.
Yeah.
I've used another guy named Rolf Kent for a bunch of other movies, and I just thought Gordon would be better for this one.
Well, I want to go back to the performances and Paul specifically. I mean, obviously, you mentioned you had him in mind, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, the process of working with him again after so many years, and also, finding this character specifically. Did he come? How did you sort of work that together?
Answering the second part of your question first, he did it.
Yeah.
And also he had gone to Choate, so he's totally from that world. I'm not. I went to a private school, but a Jesuit school in Omaha. He had the full-on Choate, Yale, elite, Connecticut experience, and he read the part. He just said, "Oh, I know those. I had those guys. I know those guys. I can play a version of that." So I just let him do it. And but working with him in general, I've had the good fortune of working with many fine actors. I feel in the 8 feature films I've made, but I have a special place in my heart for Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
I just think he's such a fine actor, and he can do anything.
Yeah.
Make bad dialogue work. So he's even better when he's got good dialogue. What I can say is what some crew people close to the camera, the DP and the key grip and the gaffer, and would say to me, which is, we've seen shorthand between director and actor before, but we've never seen it that short.
Was that something you found sort of originally on Sideways and then just brought back to this, or?
There's just a very good connection between him and me, I feel.
Yeah.
They always tell directors, and we are in film school and stuff, you have to study each individual actor and find out what makes him or her work, and, know what buttons to push, and yeah, true, and the actor must also study the director to know what movie is being made and conform him or herself to that movie. And Paul and I just have a very good basic understanding of things. We have similar taste in things. Similar taste. And he's just a super smart guy. He's the most well-read individual I know. He really doesn't want to do anything, not even acting. He'd rather just sit home and read. He has so many books in his Brooklyn Heights apartment that he had to hire a librarian to come in and organize. Like every single, the bedroom, the bathroom, everything is covered with bookshelves. All he does is read. Well, he's from a brilliant family. Bart Giamatti, his dad, president of Yale, and his grandfather, Giamatti, had been a professor of, I don't know what, medieval Italian poetry or something. I mean, he's from a brilliant family.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, sort of how you wanted to pace the movie, because it sort of envelops you, but unfolds in such
It's a little too slow.
No, it's not. No, but just how you wanted to sort of cultivate, how you thought about, especially working with David on the screenplay, cultivating the relationships between these people and how you wanted to see them unfold, and how you wanted to sort of see it unfold over the course of the film.
Well, there's nothing that different from other movies I've made, which are, when you're in screenwriting classes or something, or talking about movies, like, what's more important, character or plot?
Yeah.
Well, character, because character determines plot. Who are the people who have to make those decisions, given everything? So who the people are determines what the plot is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and then you just have things like how do you show exposition without being exposition-y? That's all screenwriting stuff.
Yeah.
And then editorially, how do you, in direction and in editing, how do you communicate what's not being said, but making sure it's being said?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is what's holding on shots before and after lines are delivered.
Yeah.
A lot of editing you see in movies and lazily edited edited movies, on television and in lazily edited movies is they just cut through the lines of dialogue with no focus on what's not being said and what's being said between, in looks. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I did want to, we have to wrap up soon, but I wanted to go back to
We're
something.
just getting started.
I know. I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the shorthand between you and Paul, and I was wondering how the other actors, how Divine and how Dominic sort of reacted to that shorthand and how they also, or participated in it and sort of fell into the company.
Well, look, in general, that oldest cliche about directing, I feel, is the truest, that 90% of directing is casting.
Yeah.
I mean, a director ideally wants not to direct. You want to just say action, and then they do it. And then you just, trim the hedges a little bit. Very little trimming is needed between Paul and me.
Yeah.
So I had more discussions probably with Divine and Dominic. And who else helped out certainly with Dominic was Paul.
Mm.
The lead in your film is like team captain of actors. And the example that he or she sets is followed by all the other actors, and he was very good that way. No, I mean, you just tell actors they need to be told. I mean, I don't know what to say. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for coming.